Good afternoon from the Harriman Institute at Columbia University in the city of New York. My name is Tanya Domi, and I am a professor with our Balkan Studies program at Harriman. Today, we welcome you to a very special program, a film screening and discussion on the Sarajevo Documentary School Retrospective with the award-winning filmmaker Ines Tanović, who is in Sarajevo. The Harriman Institute at Columbia University is one of the world's leading academic institutions for the study of Russia, Eurasia, and East Central Europe. Our mission is to serve our community at the university and beyond by supporting research, instruction, and dialogue, sponsoring vibrant and multidisciplinary events that bring together our extraordinary resources of faculty, students, and alumni. We are committed to training the next generation of regional specialists to play leadership roles in setting the academic and scholarly agenda, making policy and challenging accepted truths about how we study our rapidly changing world. Today's program and discussion about the Sarajevo Documentary School was developed in a collaboration by Ines Tanović and Harriman friend and colleague Dijana Jelača, a professor of film studies at Brooklyn College of the City University of New York. The Harriman Institute is grateful to both of them for bringing this special presentation to the Institute. These selected short films from the famed Sarajevo Documentary School were made by a number of notable filmmakers in Yugoslavia during the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s. The films tackled various themes of social justice, from workers' rights to children's precarity and gender equality. Tanović and her team at the Film Center, Sarajevo, have been hard at work digitally preserving these unique films, which are invaluable documents of Yugoslavia's and Bosnia's cinematic and cultural heritage. Ines Tanović is the director of the Film Center Sarajevo and founder of the production company Document Sarajevo. She is also a former president of the Association of Bosnia-Herzegovina Film Workers. Ines is an accomplished director who made a number of films, both narrative and documentary. Her documentaries include Exhibition, The Living Monument, Coal Mine, and A Day on the Drina. Her feature narrative debut, Our Everyday Life, was Bosnia's official entry for the Academy Awards. In 2019, Ines completed her second narrative feature, The Sun, which had its world premiere at the 25th Sarajevo Film Festival and was another official Oscar candidate from Bosnia-Herzegovina. She lives and works in Sarajevo. Dijana Jelača teaches at the film department at Brooklyn College and at the Fierstein Graduate School of Cinema. She has published widely on feminism and film, as well as on gender and trauma in post-Yugoslav cinema. Jelača is a programming co-director of the Bosnia-Herzegovina Film Festival in New York City. We want to thank the East Central European Center at Columbia University and the Bosnia-Herzegovina Film Festival in New York City for their generous sponsorship of this special program. Before we get to the discussion, a few administrative guidelines. Following the discussion and during the discussion, please submit questions in the chat. And following the discussion between Ines and Dijana, please know that we plan to respond to all questions. Now I give the microphone to Dijana.
Hello, everyone, and welcome on my behalf as well. And first of all, big thank yous to the Harriman Institute and to our friend Tanya Domi for organizing yet another amazing event that focuses on the region of Yugoslavia and past, present, and the future from all sorts of perspectives. Today's focus is film. So Ines and I curated this selection of short films to give you a sense of the range of the themes and stylistic approaches, but also of the connecting threads that run through the films made as part of what is typically called the Sarajevo Documentary School and its tradition. Thematically speaking, as diverse as they are, we see some significant connecting threads in these films. There is a clear fascination, for example, with human labor, physical labor specifically, and its repetitiveness, but also there's a deep appreciation of it and the keen desire to capture its motions. The growing urbanization is the backdrop of several of the films, as well as the precarity of rural life in particular, and especially when it comes to women, it is emphasized. And also there are filmmakers who focus on children in particular, and we will discuss this in a little more detail when we get to the films themselves. Throughout, they are intimate portraits that empathize with their subjects. That's really important. It is underlying empathy that one can detect. And these subjects, their stories, I want to highlight this, their stories or in lives, even when they're seemingly isolated from the rest of the world or rest of the society, are still somehow deeply a part of the collective experience. These are not individualist films. They treat the individual as part of a larger collectivity, even when that collectivity is not seen in the film. It structures an individual's life nevertheless. Every individual is working, existing, and acting as part of the greater collective for the common or shared good, not individual goals. And this goes for the homeless children in Dreamers too, by the way, because they form their own collective and look out for each other. Stylistically speaking, we see a range of approaches here. Some of the films embrace what we can refer to as direct cinema, or fly-on-the-wall approach without commentary, such as in the films Đurđa and Ana, which are about daily life of women in rural areas. Others have narrators, for example, school children, pedestrians, and some are quite stylized, the modernist Hopijan, or the tightly, aesthetically, and narratively structured The Mission of Ismet Kozica, where things are often played out for the camera, and the camera is directly addressed several times. For example, Ismet Kozica directly addresses the viewer, introduces himself, and he even has his own theme song. Narration in the form of song is used in Dreamers, and music, by the way, plays an important role in a number of these films. Some of the films are near wordless, and others, like The Two Laws, have a lot of intense dialogue. Whatever their stylistic approach, the overarching impression is that they all convey a deep sense of aforementioned empathy and solidarity towards their subjects. Sometimes it is stated that the typical subjects of the Sarajevo Documentary School were Yugoslavia's underclass, or the usually, quote unquote, is sometimes described unseen members of the society. So when I would like to discuss this when we get to our conversation with Ines, what kind of critiques these films may be implying or conveying, or what kind of interventions may they be performing. From today's perspective, we can also view these films as precious time capsules that capture intricate details about the multitudes and complexities, but sometimes beautifully humane simplicities too of the various aspects of the lived experience in socialist Yugoslavia. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Ines. Hello, Ines.
Hello, thank you for inviting me, and I'm very happy that I can present these films and to talk with your audience and to answer their questions. I hope they love the film and that we will discuss further about their impression.
I hope so too. It's a pleasure to have you and see you again. And before we get to the films themselves, I want to speak to you more broadly about your work at the Film Center Sarajevo. You are its current director. Tell us about the efforts and projects that you're working on right now, particularly with regards to the restoration and preservation of this incredible cinematic heritage of Yugoslavia and Bosnia specifically.
I'm director of Film Center Sarajevo for nearly 2 years, and when I came in this company, I find out very bad situation with inherited films, because Film Center Sarajevo was established in 2009 from the state of Bosnia-Herzegovina, Federation of Bosnia-Herzegovina, in order to preserve the films that was produced from 1947 to 1994. So this is the most important films that are produced and made by most important BH film authors in that time. So we inherited 3 production companies. This is Sutjeska Film, Studio Film, and Bosna Film, and we have over 80 long feature films and over 500 documentaries. And as I came in as a director, I found all these films in very bad shape, because we inherited 35 millimeters tapes and 16 millimeters tapes, originals, copies of this film, because Bosnia and Herzegovina never had a real laboratory, and all negative was developed in Avala Film and Jadran Film in Zagreb and Belgrade, and all negatives of these films, original negatives, are in that laboratories, and we have no access to this original. So we only have positive copies in our ownership, and they are in very bad shape. So my first goal was to find out in what shape they are, and to find money or somebody who will help us to try to restore these films, and of course to digitalize these films. So because we are not on any budget from the state or from the federation, only way was to make a project and to apply to several concourses in Bosnia and Herzegovina and abroad. So I made a big project and apply for fund of American ambassador. This is not fund from American embassy in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but this is the fund of American ambassadors from all the world. And this project is meant to get money for digitalization. So over 120 countries apply on this fund last year. And our project from Film Center Sarajevo is only one from Europe that got financing. So I'm very proud of that our project was recognized first in American Embassy in Sarajevo, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then was recommended to this fund of American ambassadors from all over the world. So we finally have financing for this, and we preparing and buying all the equipment necessary to digitalize these films. So I can say that we are now in the process of establishing the whole system of digitalization. And our colleague who came from Italy and want to be a volunteer in Film Center, she was in Italy in 2 laboratory and learn how to manage with this machine for digitalization. And in the month will come the crew from Belgrade who will teach us how to connect all this equipment and teach us how to use the machine. So I expecting that in the 2 months we will start with digitalization with our films that we have and that we inherited. Of course, I can say that this was that we own the most important films, not only from BH, but it was the best films in former Yugoslavia, because many authors, not only from Bosnia, but from Serbia and Croatia, shot their films in Bosnia. So we have so many beautiful films as do you remember Dolly Bell, Walter Defense Sarajevo, Diverzanti, Little Soldiers from Bato Cengic, and the Kuduz from Ademir Kenović, and so many beautiful films. And I'm very, very proud of these inherited films.
How long do you think the process will take?
It depends of the state of the films, because we have to establish every copies of the film in what state is now. When we open the cassettes, when we open the boxes, in which state we will find the films. Our colleagues, Anya, she already spent the year in former studio Jagomir, and she make the list of the films who is already ruined from the bacteria and fungus. So we have so many films that already are infected, and we now have this process of dividing the infected films from good films, that they don't infect each other, so that we can start a process of digitalization with say healthy film, because the machine is very expensive, and also we cannot put in this machine fungus and bacteria. So we will now put it in the other space, and in years I hope that we will find a way to clean this film and then put it in the digitalization, because we have these films and titles of the films that are very known. But what I find very important, maybe much more important, is that we have so many roles that we don't know what is on that. So I expecting that this is a real treasure on these tapes, and that we will find out this treasure in the years to come. So at the first, we have to preserve these tapes from further ruin, that they don't ruin anymore, and then slowly to go to digitalization and find out what we have.
I can't overstate the importance of what you and your team are doing. This is such an incredible work, not just with regards to what you just mentioned, restoring and preserving the well-known work, which is important in and of itself, obviously, but also to save, rediscover, and sometimes maybe even make possible for the first time to see works that maybe were never even shown or have been forgotten for decades. And so this is just incredible. And my kudos to you and your team, really, for all of that. So with regards to the Sarajevo Documentary School, those films were made under the Sutjeska film, right? Studio.
Yes.
And so this is their inheritance. And of course, after the disintegration of Yugoslavia, these studios, many film studios that existed in the country ceased to exist as well, or transformed. And so the question of who films belong to, whose heritage there, became a very politicized issue, controversial issue. So there's still complications around that because they're really a Yugoslav legacy. But that's not for current ethno-nationalist dominant politics in the region. That's not a popular stance, right? So let's talk a little bit more about the Sarajevo Documentary School. Give us a little general background of what it was, what these filmmakers are known for, how it was established, etc., and in what context they were creating their work.
So the famous Sarajevo Documentary School is really what is in some time in those time recognized as a much more how to say worth than feature films itself, because in former Yugoslavia we have only few films from Bosnia and Herzegovina competing with many other films from former Yugoslav countries, and big directors from Serbia and Croatia are much more known than Bosnian authors in that time. We of course know Šiba Krvavac and his films, partisan films from that period, but these films are not known as art films, and they are not recognized as other films from Yugoslav and heritage those days. But the authors who make documentaries in 60s, 70s, and not late, but early 80s are much more recognizable with this work, because they really make the films from the scene of the life. They when you see these films, I'm really amazed how they are not so, how to say, they don't show themselves as director in these films. You cannot see the director. You really, only as a viewer, you really go into the life and you see the life itself through this film. So these authors as Vlatko Filipović, Vefik Hadžismailović, Milutin Kosovac, Petar Ljubojev, Mirza Idrizović, then Mirjana Zoranović, who is one of the only one women director who was very known through these documentaries. They really have a time and how to say, from this documentary, from production company, they get all the support to make this film. And what is amazing for me, I'm amazed when you compare today documentaries and these documentaries, you can see the impact of television, because today television is so strong that you cannot make any more documentaries on this way how that was shot in these years 16 and 70s, because documentaries are now much more as a TV reportage. You have always the discussion, you have dialogue, you have something that how to say, the format of today's documentary is much more format of television. It's 55 minutes or 25 minutes or 90 minutes, because these documentaries have to be in slots, in TV slots, because you cannot show your documentaries anymore anywhere in the cinemas. Today you show documentaries only on Netflix, you know, this platform, but previously documentary artists have the freedom to make the film how they want. And for this documentary school is very specific that they make short documentaries. This is the format that is almost forgotten, because this format you cannot show nowhere anymore. Only some festivals have maybe these slots of short festivals, for short documentaries. And in former Yugoslavia, we have one of the most important festivals. That was the festival of short documentaries and short films in Belgrade. It was March in that time, and it was named as March. Belgrade March Festival, and all authors in Yugoslavia, they send their films to this festival, and this was the platform where they can show the films. And from this festival, from Belgrade, they travel through the world festivals. So
I was going to ask you about that, because these films had their amazing successes at the international festival film circuit.
It was mostly Oberhausen, Krakow, Leipzig, and other very important festivals. But Oberhausen, Krakow, you know, this was the most important festivals for documentaries. And our authors won several of these awards on this festival, because they have, how to say, they have this wave of or not wave, but this is, they talk about former Yugoslavia from their perspective and from their view, because Yugoslavia at that time was something between West and East, you know, and the life, what is on television and what is on politics is not what they want to show through the documentaries. So through the documentaries, you can see the real life at former Yugoslavia, because in Toulouse, you see how the people don't want to let the girls to go to the schools, yes. And how the people, how the parties comes to the villages and ask the people to let the girls in the school. Also the Ismet Kozica mission, you really recognize the system of former Yugoslavia, how some guy who is not educated, but he was given the assignment to find the women for the labor work in industry. So I think that it's really this perspective from this author, even it's different from film to film, really show you the former Yugoslavia life.
Yes,
from the real from the real people,
or from ordinary persons, right? And it's not a top-down representation.
It's
like
not official version,
right? Not bird's eye
not
view.
official version of our life, how it can be from from television, from politicians, from our. But this is the real life. And
it's really amazing, and you already pointed this out, the filmmakers really don't draw attention to themselves. They don't, there's no overt commentary of the voiceover, like the voice of God kind of situation. There's no talking heads. So really, as I mentioned, sort of more in the vein of direct cinema. And there's something that, by the way, there's still holdouts of people who are doing such work to these days. So I'm thinking of Frederick Wiseman, but of course he started at that period as well, and he's still working with his fly on the wall films and observing humans and institutions. So here this is very important, and this is what adds to that empathy and solidarity, that these subjects are not condescended, they're shown in their complexities. We mentioned 2 laws, and obviously there's a few films, 4 of them, in fact, in our selection, that are specifically about gender equality or the position of women in Yugoslavia, because, of course, one of the foundational goals of Yugoslavia, socialist Yugoslavia, was gender equality, achieving gender equality. But, of course, theory and practice often end up being something entirely different. So while this was the official mandate and the official narrative, on the ground, especially when it comes to working class women and rural women, that was really difficult to achieve. So with 2 laws, we see that, and of course there is commentary there. Not it's very subtle. The commentary that the documentary that I saw it giving is through parallel editing or cross-cutting. So when the girls are saying they don't want to go to school, clearly some of them are coached to say that. Yes. We are cutting back and forth between that scene and those situations and them doing physical manual labor back at home, either in the home itself or out on the field. One father says, my daughter, or is it the mother says, my daughter didn't come because she's out plowing the land, right? Yes, so that's the clear inference through montage that this is the real reason their labor is needed. So for them, education is not as big of a priority.
But yes, but I also see it as a way, artistic way, how to recognize how was very hard this land after 45, after the Second World War, to achieve this industrialization and education in former Yugoslavia, because this is a subtle way to recognize that we in 50, 60 majority of people were how to say peasants, were not educated, and still were in these years as before Second World War. And through this short documentary, you can recognize so many. You can recognize the society, how the patriarchate is so strong, and even the politician and society and everything you can put in the law and the right, but in family and in the patriarchal system of thinking in the family, it's so stubborn. And how you cannot easily transfer the society from this feudal system, because Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia, were not industrial country. It was before the Second World War. It was like a feudal system. You transfer to industrial system. And when I think about this today, I much more admire now how much work was done.
The effort put in.
Effort. Mm-hmm. With 22 million people. Of course, it was in the city was people who are educated, of course, and everything, but 22 million people was in absolutely other system. We jumped over the industrial revolution. We were never in an industrial revolution. We never had capitalism in former Yugoslavia. We jumped in socialism in these years from 45 to 90s. Mm-hmm. And I much more admire now how this system was really stubborn. Yes. and change the people and families, and how many women were educated, and how we feel free in this country, and how our mothers work and educated, and how we were equal.
Yes, and women entering the workforce, and therefore getting the chance to be emancipated, not depend on men in their family, obviously. And
yes.
And that's sort of the surrounding context for the mission of Ines Kozica, which is a very interesting film because of its style. It's a kind of a comedy, a docudrama, really. Some things are sort of played out, and the music that is made.
I really like this brother Vranešević. One of them just died last week, I read. They really make so many songs and music for Bosnian authors. And they made the song for this film especially. So it is like absolutely different film from the other, because he is like comedy, but is documentary, and this nothing will be the same if the author didn't find this character, this specific character, because he is the main thing in this film, because his energy and how he talks and how he walks and how he play with this women, and how it's beautiful, really.
Yes, he's quite a character. And speaking of another film that sort of stands out because of its style and aesthetics, that's Hopian, and that's really just a brilliant film. Tell us a little more about that one. Give us your commentary on it.
Yeah, the film, my father told me, because he was the producer and he knows all these authors, that this film was meant originally, and the idea for this film is actually from the DOP, Jokica Jolić, because he wanted to shoot this film because he was the really amazing DOP, director of photography, and Vlatko Filipović was director. But originally, the most of the film and the most of quality of this film is through the lens, through the lens of the camera, and of course the rhythm of the editing, and rhythm editing, and this work of the worker, and sound. You have editing, and the light, and this is the real poema for me. It's real song as a film, as a song, because it's perfectly in rhythm, in picture, and in editing. For me, it's one of the best film from directing point of view, from whole package, as a package.
Absolutely, I agree. The rhythms you speak of, from the types of shots, the beautiful cinematography, and how it's matched by the rhythm of the work and the chanting that is used to coordinate the work, and of course the editing. And then towards the end, we get those shots of various works of art made out of stone, Of course, this is where we start, but
how?
the labor itself is made into a work of art by this film.
Yes.
Almost matched to those statues that we see at the end. It's really incredibly stunning, and I think needs to be seen more and celebrated more, as do all of these films. And so we didn't touch. Well, let's talk a little bit more about. We already mentioned him, Vefik Hadžismailović, and his fascination with children in particular, which we see in the 3 films that we showed by him: School Children, Pedestrians, and Dreamers, which are focused on boys, and then the 2 Laws, obviously, which now we see the situation with the girls in this rural area that he filmed it in. Want to comment on his work?
Yeah, Vefik Hadžismailović is real. He was he is originally finished the history of art, and he worked as director of BH Gallery, and he's real intellectual, and he knows about the art and the history of art and everything. And when you compare his documentaries and feature films, you will find out how he was the better author in documentaries. This is where his heart is, and was. And that's why I think you choose 3 his films, because they are different, but the same interest of him. He was interesting in the children, and the first one that we shown was the pedestrian, and it is amazing. When I was a child, I hear the story about the child who walks to the school kilometers and miles and miles and miles, and it was like some story that somebody told you a story as a fairy tale, because we lived in city and we didn't have this connection and knowledge about this, that so many children have no possibility to go to school as we are. So this is very important as a topic, of course, as a witness of time, but the approach, how he approached as an author on this, with this inner monologue, it's very, very, for me, it's very, how to say, he connect the picture and what we see with this inner monologue, because of course we can see the story only through the picture, but if you add how these children think from in their voice, it's much more than stronger. Yes. Because they are learning, yes. And make German. They're
rehearsing their school lessons as they walk. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And on the end, when this child have this a house built from the paper, how he cries, it's real. You really see his pain, and you really see how he was disappointed and how hard this to come to school, and how hard it is for them to go every day to school 12 kilometers. And I think that he really find the best way how to show this without any other comment, unnecessary comment in film. It's only child, it's only the weather, it's only this road and the cars, and somebody stop, somebody don't stop, and the children who said 300 days per year we are going 12 kilometers. And it's also like a metaphor of the new society, how new society goes for the new for the new knowledge. They want to learn, they want to use this possibility to learn, to build a new society. You can read this film in several levels. It's not only the children who are going to school, but is the metaphor of this society who is still young, who is still poor, but they let them and give them possibility to learn and to be better people.
Yes, and the importance of education in the process and the motivation of the children, the drive to actually get there, quite literally to school and back, but also get there in terms of progress.
And we
education.
didn't see no girl.
Yes, exactly. The girls didn't seem to track. It was, by the way, it was the experience of both of my parents growing up in Yugoslavia because they lived in rural areas. So this kind of track was both boys and girls. But in Dreamers, just quickly, one more point about his work in Dreamers, we see the urban children, and in this case, homeless urban children, which I would think might have been shocking for some people to discover, but indeed it was one of those things that still needed to be acknowledged as a real lived experience of some individuals in Yugoslavia, including children. And of course, Želimir Žilnik has also made a documentary about homeless people in the 60s as well. So this was a period more broadly in Yugoslav cinema of a time where these emerging newer filmmakers were sort of opening up different topics, different from what was depicted or seen in the earlier areas, and a little more critical, gritty, people from the margins or peripheries of society, the unseen, quote unquote, even though I never quite know what that unseen means, because unseen to whom? They see themselves, right? Even if others don't see them. And then the two last ones that are focused on women, A Day in the Life of a Woman, both of them, Đurđa and Ana, very fly on the wall, again, no commentary, some suggestions. We're thinking of the scene when Đurđa is looking at the poster of a blonde woman with a chainsaw, as we hear the sound of the chainsaw as the men are cutting down the trees outside, and so then she's combing her hair, but this endless labor of house chores, of household chores, that just seems to never end. And it's a cycle that, you know, this is a representative day of how every day goes for each of these women, and in particular with the last one, Ana, and like you mentioned, our only female director here, Mirjana Zoranović. Tell us a little bit about these films and about Mirjana. Was she the only female director as part of this group?
Yes, she only make documentaries, never feature. And of course, we had Vesna Ljubić. She is the women director who make two features, but she also make documentaries. But Mirjana is only documentaries, make documentaries, and for me, Dijana is much more poetic than Đurđa, because I was thinking about these two films, how it was from men's perspective, women, and how it was from women perspective, almost the same. It's not the same topic, but only one woman in whole film, and the life of these women's. But Đurđa for me is very interesting, because he contrapunct the author, the Mirza Idrizović, he put in contrapunct the sound of man and man's labor with her silent life, because she is in silent, she is alone, and everyday life, everyday work is the same. She have to take care about all this man who is working in the wood. And this is what I find the most interesting in this film, this contrapunct, how we see her and how we hear them as a life, as something that women is not allowed. They are together, they are working together, laughing together,
and
eating
singing.
singing together, have social life, and she is alone, and every day is the same. And but the whole pleasure is with men, because you want to be with them, not alone at home. But in Anna, this is a really poetic film, almost also because of the music, because she had really good music under the story, because there are no dialogue, nothing. We hear her only talking with the animals, but it's really poetic how she combined the music and her loneliness, and we can feel this sorrow.
Yes.
And how she wait for the bus, and how she make this bed for never coming children to see her,
who are only there in photos, which she frequently
in
looks at.
photos. And I was amazed how he's energetic, how she climbed
Yes.
to take grass for the animal, and how she moved very fast, and I was really amazed, and think how women are so strong and so unbreakable. Not only physically, she's like that, you see the back, she cannot be in normal
she can stand
position,
straight up,
straight, but she is so mentally strong, because I was thinking why she have all these animals. She can sit only and nothing. But I read from this film this strong woman, how she strong is, and how she is unbeatable by life. And I was thinking about how she will die on the feet, doing some job, not lying in bed and crying. No, she is fighting till the end. And that's why I love this film.
Yes.
I wanted to say, I just wanted to interject that I was very struck through all the films of the physicality of the people. The physicality, you were just speaking about this woman, how strong she was, but it seemed to be a theme in every film. The work, and I've never seen these films before, and I've learned from both of you. I just want to say that when I traveled around Bosnia and I look at the roads and I look at the tunnels, and I always thought, oh my God, how did they do it? And of course, in the first film, you see the physicality of the labor. And it seems to be, I think I come away, I always felt this way anyway, but the strength, the actual physical strength of Yugoslav people at that time. But you also see that resilience carry forward, into my own personal experience of the country. I just want to say these filmmakers have captured it in such a way that is not only beautiful, but it's also, it gives a sense of how basic the life was, like doing chores, moving rocks, as you said, Ines, about how creating a new country, a new society. I was just really struck by the physicality. It's overwhelming. It's really awesome. I take this awesome feeling away. And then I was also struck about, how strong you were talking about, how stubborn. Well, of course, I joke about Enot, but there is some stubbornness in these people. They are not going to quit. And all the filmmakers capture that. I'm not as nuanced in my analysis, but I would say that it comes through. The boys walking 12 kilometers, finding some way to get to school, this persistence, this stubbornness. It's like part of the land, it's part of the air, and these filmmakers capture it. And that's my takeaway that I really got from it. So thank you.
That's great commentary, Tanya. And I think that that's something really important that these films do in showing these repetitive actions of daily life that would typically be considered something that's very uncinematic, right? Because this is ordinary life. This is something that's repetitive. With cinema, you want to move forward, move the plot, have something new happen, unexpected. And here you're actually asked to sit down and be with these people as they live their everyday life, whatever their situation may be. And so it's just really wonderful and humane. We have some questions from the audience. Should we bring this in now? And please type if you have questions. We'll try to get to them all first. Thea is saying, bravo, Ines. Thank you for this exceptionally important work in preserving our art and heritage. And Damir congratulates us for our event. Thank you, Damir. A question for Ines is it possible to organize some kind of caravan with the best documentaries and present them to audiences in small towns and villages? He's talking about Bosnia and Yugoslav context. We never know what can be trigger for someone who have an opportunity to see something interesting. He's from Tuzla, and when he was a child, used to go to festival documentary film, which Tuzla had in those years. And that obviously was a very important experience. So is there such an opportunity or initiative, possibility?
Yes, I think that is a very good idea. And of course, we are thinking about that to make possible to show these films to larger audience, because we discovering now them, because nobody showed those films before. So of course these are not the best copies. So the first what we will do, we will digitalize those films, because I think they are much more important than the features, because everybody knows features and you can find it on internet, on television, but the documentaries you cannot find. So that's why I open free Kino Walter in Film Center Sarajevo, because of this, that young people can come to cinema and see those films. Sitting in cinema is different than only seeing through the internet. So I create the atmosphere in Film Center Sarajevo with small cinema, 20-30 people, and you can come and see all what you want from this film. So the good idea is to organize tour through the Bosnia and to show people these films, not only in Sarajevo, of course, but this is the beginning. We are talking about the beginning of making other people know about this heritage.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Amir, friend Amir, and my programming co-director from BHFF also says, great to see these films and learn more about the efforts to digitize and archive all this incredible work. So exciting. And he's hoping to visit your archive, which I think you've talked to him about. Amir, if you're still here, thank you. He says he has to leave early. Thank you for coming. And Nadia says, though the focus of this conversation is on V&H documentary output from the Yugoslav era, what threads could one pull to connect or not connect documentary film making then to some of the documentary inflected films or documentaries being produced nowadays in the post-Yugoslav era? Do you consider it to be more of a break or a continuation?
I didn't.
Do you see it?
No, I don't see it. Nadia, yes, but I don't see the question. I didn't understand really
She's
good.
asking whether we could to reflect on contemporary documentaries being made in the region, former Yugoslavia.
Yes.
And is there some similarity? Do they draw from these traditions we've seen in Yugoslav's film, for example, Sarajevo Documentary School, or do you see them starkly different? And you can also talk about your own documentary work.
I will say that really it's rare that you can see in today's documentary the impact of these films, because so many authors after the 95 didn't see these films because they are not on television, and you cannot see these films. I'm the generation before the war, so I really see these films originally in some festivals. So I drew these roots from those times. So I made this kind of documentaries because for me it's natural to have these short documentaries. I really almost always bored with 90 minutes documentaries. I cannot bear it. So very rare I can find that is documentary, not TV film or TV reportage. You know, today is mixed. You cannot define what is documentary, what is TV, because as I spoke before, on many festivals, you can find real films and some TV reportage, which somebody call as documentaries. So today is difficult to make real documentary. It's not so easy because so many topics, and everybody can make a film or TV reportage about the same topics. But what is documentary? This is approach. This is how authors see the topic, and how make from this topic real documentary. That it's not talking heads, that it's not what is in the news, that is not what is something amazing. It's hard to make documentary from some topic that it's not how to say, it's not from the news.
Yeah.
Real documentary, yes, is how you treat the topic, how you approach, and how is your author perspective on this topic.
Yeah. I can add to this and say that as a co-programmer of the Bosnian-Herzegovinian Film Festival here in New York City, we get submissions every year, both narrative films and documentaries. And of course, we watch them all, even the films we don't end up selecting. And I have to say that just from that experience, most documentaries that are being made, their theme is still war. War trauma, overcoming war trauma, which is in many ways understandable, but there also tend to be these sort of more conventional documentary styles of talking heads, sometimes reenacting certain events, talking about them with this sort of sense of definitiveness. They're very rarely, off the top of my head, I can only think of a handful that are films that are these intimate portrayals of everyday life of individuals without commentary, again, just sort of a direct cinema style, fly on the wall, etc. One of them we're hoping to actually show in this year's festival, which will take place in April. So I'm not going to mention it yet because we haven't officially locked down the program. But one other that I'm thinking of in recent years that actually does lean in important ways on some of these traditions, especially with Đurđa and Anna, is Macedonian or North Macedonian documentary Honeyland. I don't know if you've seen it.
It's Macedonian.
This is the perfect.
Yeah.
This is the real perfect documentary.
Exactly. And for those who haven't seen it, highly recommended. I believe it was in 2019 that it was released, and it's about a woman again living with her elderly mother in really remote mountain areas of Macedonia. She speaks several languages, and she's a beekeeper. And it's a really beautifully shot and wonderful film and depiction of her life. I think, let's see, I think we have one more comment or question. Rui, I want to know the political indications of city and rural district in these episodes. I feel that there are tensions and ironies there between the space of rural district and space of city, that there's tensions between the urban spaces and rural. Stories are not totally described in a nostalgic way. Some of them are full of ambiguity and satire. Do you want to comment?
Maybe he sees these ways. The film is from this perspective absolutely different than from the perspective they was shot. So shot.
Yeah, it's interesting. Of course, we have to historicize this, right? We have to historicize it. We are now in a very different context and watching them from a very different context than when they were being made, right? But the urban versus rural, we don't want to draw too harsh a dichotomy, but it is important to point out that there was a lot of rural population in Bosnia, especially, and that there was also at the same time a growing industrialization and therefore urbanization of rural populations moving to cities to get jobs, as we see with the girls in the mission of Ismet Kozica. And by the way, they're going to be textile workers, and that was one of the most common jobs for working class women in Yugoslavia, textile workers.
Yes.
I think we should slowly start to wrap this up. I want to thank our participants, those of you who attended, and for your questions and comments. And once again, I want to reiterate that it's an absolute honor and pleasure to be in conversation with Ines about the incredibly important work that she's doing here, but also highlight this very, very important cinematic heritage of Bosnia and Yugoslavia, that is Sarajevo Documentary School. And we created subtitles, Ines's team with my advisement created the subtitles, English subtitles here. So I believe this is one of the rare chances to actually see these films with English subtitles, which are now in place.
So kudos to both of you. A very nice piece of work. And I've been to Ines's center and visited. I snuck into Sarajevo last summer and I was able to spend the afternoon with her. And I encourage people to go and learn, because there's the work that is being done is so important. And I want to thank, I just want to thank you, Ines. It's been a real pleasure. I've been watching you for a while. The pandemic stopped us from getting together and doing this program with our dear Dijana, but we've done it. And so I encourage people to share the live stream link and so that people get to know the important role that Ines is playing in preserving the heritage of former Yugoslavia and Bosnia's role in it.
So the YouTube live stream will then become a recording that will appear, appear there.
That's
so if you want to share it further. Just quick final 2 comments. Adnan is also thanking you, Ines, for your truly important work, and Stoyan as well. But he's also asking, is there a way that we can support your work by donations in a similar way or some other similar way?
Thank you, Stoyan. We know each other, and all support is always good, but you know, this has to be state business, you know, and I'm so amazed that you recognize this, and Harriman Institute and you, Dijana, and your co-workers, that you recognize this, what we are doing in Film Center. But in our country, you know, nobody care about it. And this is really on the shoulder on few people. And we are struggling to make this possible because we are all film, how to say, fanatic. We really want to preserve this, because I think that the future generation will recognize that and discover that.
Absolutely. And Aurora also says, thank you, hvala svima. This is such fantastic, important work, is including that we did the subtitles. I'm so happy we did that, so that it can remain available to English language speakers outside of those of us who understand and speak Serbo-Croatian. Thank you again all. I will sign out now. And thank you again, Harriman and Tanya, for having us, and Ines, kudos to you for everything you do.
Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you,
I
Ines.
I hope we will continue something like that in the future, and that we will have more and more visitors to this program.
Yeah, absolutely. As you catalog and archive and are able to, produce films, we can come back and do this again, share what you've done and share it with the world. So again, thank you so much. I want to thank Dijana and Ines one more time. I encourage all the people in New York to sign up for the BH Film Festival. It's coming up in April, and we will see you again soon. And I will see you, Ines, very soon.
Very soon, and I'm waiting for this coffee.
Absolutely.
So have a nice evening. To me is evening.
For
and
us,
have
it's
a nice
afternoon.
weekend, and see you.
Be
Thank
well
you.
and safe, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.